Hi, my name is Trevor Yeltman, and I'm here for Ed 506 on the fourth assignment about creating an action plan for students that have had traumatic experiences. So the purpose of there's three things that are going to happen for this assignment. The first one is I'm going to summarize quickly how childhood trauma and stress impact academic learning and why students struggle to learn. I'm then going, based off of that information, create an action plan that will promote resiliency so that students can recover and be resilient through those challenges. And then I'm going to describe how resilience skills support not only the growth of children, but also teachers or adults in general. So stress impacts children in many ways, and one of the biggest things that trauma does to children is it impacts their brains. It also impacts their bodies, but specifically today I'm going to talk about how trauma impacts the brain. Science makes it clear that exposure to early adversity affects the developing brains and bodies of children. It inhibits the prefrontal cortex, which is needed for executive functioning. And this is by Harris, 2014. And the reason I chose this quote is that it's, as educators, it's about learning. We want students to learn. But we also know that if students are struggling getting into their prefrontal cortex, that learning won't take place as well. And the good thing here is brains are built, not born. So, and that's a quote from Center on the Developing Child at Harvard. The good things is that brains are built, right? So the bad news is that some of these students come in with these traumatic experiences and their brains are struggling, but they can be rebuilt. And that's the resilience piece that we'll talk about later. So one of the things that happens with students' brains is that they don't feel safe. And when students don't feel safe, you're gonna have a hard time learning. Students need a sense of physical and psychological safety for learning to occur, since fear and anxiety undermine cognitive capacity and short-circuit the learning process. So we can see here clearly that students that have ACEs typically struggle learning because of this lack of safety that they feel. They're not calm. And so Ham talks about learning brain versus survival brain, and how in the learning brain, mistakes are okay, they're accepted, and there's belonging, and these students feel safe. And that is just something that, again, trauma creates experiences where people or students in particular don't feel safe. And again, we're going to continue with this whole safety idea. In order to get to the cortex, students need to be regulated and connected. And so, again, the impact that we're seeing here is that students don't feel safe and they're not ready to learn. And in order for learning to occur, students need to be calm, connected, and then learning can take place. And also, I just saw a quote here: "Kids do well if they can," is a phrase that allows educators a chance to approach challenging behavior as a skill deficit and will deficit. So these are just reminders as we go through here to talk about more in the resilience piece. We have to realize that kids will do well if they can, but they're struggling because of their brain and what has happened to them in the past. So based upon what we just talked about and how safety is a huge key component, it's the starting point of any sort of resilience to happen. The action plan that I'm going to talk about today is, and this is the question this is the second part of the purpose here. How shall professional educators best promote resilience and recovery for children and families who have experienced traumatic events? I'm going to go over 4 things that are going to, as an action plan, that can help promote resiliency: physical safety, psychological safety and relationships, executive functioning strategies, and self-regulating strategies. So the first one is the physical safety. If the students are not in an environment, right, where it feels safe, and this could be the layout of the classroom, it could be the symbols and artifacts on people's wall, it could be just the environment itself. Is it calming? Is there escape routes? Things like that. This is all in the book of Rosen talks about it. It's important that students come into an environment where they actually have a chance to feel safe, just in the physical sense. Some things that people can do again is checking out the layout of the classroom. There's lighting, there's paint colors, you could have regulation spaces where you could teach students how to use these spaces if they don't feel safe. Some of the barriers and struggles with this is the space of classrooms and resources we have. My new classroom I just went into might be the ugliest thing I've ever seen. I don't know if I can paint the walls or change colors or make things more calming. But again, these are barriers that are there. But again, with communication to administration in different ways, we can go through these barriers and create safe places for students to feel safe. Another action plan is once we have that physical environment that's safe, now it's the exciting part, which is it's time to kind of turn on that relationship piece with that psychological safety. Warm, caring, supportive student-teacher relationships, as well as other child-adult relationships, are linked to greater school performance and engagement, greater emotional regulation, social competence, and willingness to take on challenges. This means that once we have a physical space, now it's time to love children, be respectful, allow them to know that mistakes are okay. Start building that trust piece where you know that you show them that you're there for them and that you have compassion. And one of my favorite things is from a book called Discipline That Connects with the Child's Heart, is you are loved no matter what. So, before any math or reading or anything takes place, we need to make sure that students know that they're loved and that they are safe and that they feel safe. The barrier with time. So I'm going to be, sometimes we have enough time to build these relationships. But again, the one way we have to just carve out, if I have 45 minutes, carve out 5 minutes every day to start to build these relationships, and maybe with games, maybe just communicating how I feel about them, things like that. So time is always a barrier, but we can be strategic with our time, and we can also use our coworkers. So if my kids go to somewhere else, is to continue that relationship more as a collective group of educators than just one person's. I only am going to have 5 minutes here, so I'm not sure if I'll keep going. But the third one, so again, we have physical safety, relationship building. Once we get past this, now we can start actually helping students with their executive functioning skills and getting to that prefrontal cortex. Executive functioning consists of 3 main components: working memory, self-control, and mental flexibility. So what are some things that an educator can do to help promote resiliency? Once the students feel safe, we can start to show students that they can set goals. We can remind them to monitor their own behavior and ask them how they're feeling, giving them opportunities. Again, on the next slide, I'll show you about staying calm and things like that. Having positive self-talk, giving games to students and allowing them to connect with other people while they problem solve together. What happens is there's a big barrier here. It's hard to teach executive functioning skills when everyone just wants to teach academics and testing. That's a barrier. But as a collective group, and especially as independent teachers, like for me, I secretly don't care about the testing as much, and I'm still going to get good test scores, but it's because I'm going to care about how to teach students by caring about their executive functioning skills. So I'm going to use my academics, and I'm going to challenge them with goal setting and resiliency and positive self-talk as they're doing the assignment. So a barrier is, everything. We don't focus on this as much. We don't think about it, but I feel like we could, if we strategically use our academic content, we could really, I think, do this every day. Lastly, on the action plan is self-regulation strategies. This is very connective to executive functioning, but I'll be a little more specific here. Educators must be aware of and regularly implementing a broad range of self-regulation skills, building strategies. You can build skills self-regulating, so you can do movements to get students to calm down. You could listen to calming music or other musics. Teaching students how to breathe and take deep breaths when they feel overwhelmed. And again, barrier is time and different needs. Some students might need the movement to relax. How do people care? How do you take care of yourself when you start being overwhelmed? That could look different for every student. But again, some of these ideas of, we as educators can guide and show and support students by showing them self-regulating skills, so when they do feel overwhelmed, they can take that deep breath and continue to live in that learning brain. So yes, the barriers for that is the time and different needs. One way, something you can do is, again, that strategic scheduling. This is really important. I mean, if kids can't stay calm, they can't learn. So I think it's really important that we take our time and we really get strategic with putting this in our daily lessons, if not weekly. This has to be done. And again, communicating to administration and different people that this is important could allow for more time. And then also just different needs. I don't always have to teach about breathing, right? You can teach about movement. So again, even though there's some barriers, I feel like there's still ways that educators can overcome those barriers. The last part of this video is about resilience enhancing skills. Resilience is not some magical quality. It is something that really can be built. This is exciting. It's not like all of a sudden you have it or you don't. We all have it, but to different degrees, and we can build upon it. And there are certain things that children and educators can do to improve and build on their resiliency. Creating great relationships with others and healthy relationships is a key component to especially students becoming resilient. Having great role models and people around to support and show you and model for you great resiliency skills is a great way to become and build in your resiliency. Another thing, one of the most exciting things that that a person can learn is about self-care. It's critical that people take care of themselves first so that they have the energy and capacity to be resilient themselves. And a lot of times, becoming centered and realizing your focus is just to take a deep breath and just calm down a little bit and take care of yourself by finding ways to, again, stay calm. It can give you that energy to be resilient in bad times, right? And so if we are aware, our awareness of ourselves, we need to become centered. The more aware we become of ourselves and how to take care of ourselves, the better we're going to be for not only us, but the people around us. And so relationships are important in building resiliency, but also realizing that you have to take care of yourself is another major component for building resiliency. In conclusion, we talked a lot about how trauma and toxic stress impact the brain. And as soon as that brain is impacted, learning will not take place unless you can get your mind right and stay calm and get that learning brain. Because the problem is that students' brains are high stressed, the action plans then give us a chance to sit back and say, wow, we need to have physically safe environments to promote resiliency. We need to have good relationships and have a place for psychological safety, right? Good relationships where people know that you love them and you care for them. We now then need, if this is all happening, we now have a chance to teach students about executive functioning skills and self-control. And from there, we can even teach them how to self-regulate themselves and take care of themselves by breathing and using physical activities to just feel better and stay calm so learning can take place. describe how, and also in the video, we described how resilience enhancing social support the growth in children. The better that we can take care of ourselves and the better that we connect with other individuals, resiliency is going to be a lot easier, and we will grow stronger in resiliency with support from people and support with ourselves. Thank you.